Hello everyone. Hope everyone is back. We are starting with our next session from Mumbai chapter. The session topic is less talks, more action with Agile by Kalpak Chavan, who is an Agile delivery and transformation coach with a leading global investment bank. Before we start our session, I would like to thank our founding sponsor, Innovation Roots. Innovation Roots is a leading consulting and training service provider, helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more information about Innovation Roots, request you to visit www.innovationroots.com. Do's and don'ts. Join the event 5 minutes before the start time. Use high quality speakers, headphones for better sound quality. Keep your microphones muted and video disabled as they may cause disturbance and bandwidth issue. Questions will be taken via chat box. At the end of the session, the facilitator or moderator will help to read out the few questions as per the time available. Please fill the feedback form after the event to help us understand more about the event management. We appreciate your cooperation. I would like to call Kalpak.
Okay, great. Thanks, Prashant. Hello, everyone. Uh, First of all, before I start with any of my talks in this session, I would like to take a moment to appreciate all of you because I know it is a Saturday and it is a Sunday, and we are talking about so many interesting topics and doing such a, I would say, insightful conversation-based, I would say, agenda on a Sunday is definitely a task. So, appreciation to all of you, and B, a big thanks personally from my side to Prashant, Nisha, everybody from Agile Network for giving me this opportunity to come here, present my thoughts uh, with this esteemed list of speakers. Uh, it is a wonderful work your team has been doing. I went through different topics today, which were lined up yesterday. Today, I couldn't attend all, but I did hear a few of them, and it was an interesting lineup. And congratulations! And I would request and recommend Prashant and team to keep doing this good work for times to come. I'm sure it would be super successful as we promise.
Thank
With
you,
this,
Kalpak.
thanks. With this, I would like to start my session. Uh, some introduction from my side before we begin about less. I start talking about less. What I'm going to take up in the next 30 minutes. Definitely, it is not going to be a boring session. It is not going to be a preachy session on why less is useful or why you should only use less. I will take you some of the things specific to my job. I'm sure in the audience also there must be a lot of experts in in different scaling frameworks, be it less, safe, Nexus. There are so many wonderful scaling frameworks across agile implementations. But I'm going to talk about less. But before that, let me just take a fraction of a second to introduce myself so that you know who you are listening to. So I am basically from Mumbai. I have lived and traveled in a lot of cities from the work perspective. Uh, with my little bit of experience of 12 plus years, I would say it is very less compared to some of the experts here. I have got an opportunity to work with multiple organizations, primarily fintech, or I would say I would mention investment banks. I've been associated even currently with JP Morgan Chase. I know in the poster it is global leading bank, but I don't. Proudly I would. JP Morgan is my employer right now, and I'm working with them as an agile leading the entire agile delivery and transformation coaching, delivery and transformation initiatives for Chase globally. And on the education perspective, uh, apart from engineering and MBA, I have done few certifications associated with Scrum. and LeSS. So it's certified LeSS, yes, I'm a certified LeSS practitioner. From Scrum, I'm certified in PSM1 and PSM2, and the product ownership part of it, as well as I have associated with some of the global certifications, which are very, I would say, specific to people like Del Carnegie, right? That was one of my favorites because I'm working in a people-driven industry. So this is something about me. I'm passionate about reading and traveling, but of late and last few years, I'm passionate about Agile and specifically Scrum as well. No offense to the safe people out here. I I'm reading safe, and I would definitely try to know more about safe in coming time. So let's start with the session. I know you might have certain questions, and Prashant has already set the decorum. I will answer a lot of your questions in last 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes as we progress. But before that, um, before we talk also about less, I would like to take a minute to also understand and ponder each one of you to this question, which is very eminent and very important. And I think we should ask this question to ourselves, which would also let you understand why and which framework you should use. So the question is very, it's you can see on the slide, it is why do we need to scale? Why do we need scaling? I think this is a very basic and fundamental question. Uh, Answer is not very simple and straightforward. However, the answer can be divided into three major pointers. A, we scale because our product has multiple modules, multiple requirement areas, multiple requirement clusters, multiple, you can say, feature-based arenas which are pushing our product to scale. This can be one reason, or rather a very important, I would say, poignant reason. Number two, huge team size. And based on my experience, and I'm sure you all would agree, team size is a very important factor, majorly governed to say that yes, we should scale. We should scale into multiple teams. We have cross-functional people. Let's create cross-functional teams and scale up. So, number two. Number three is a little complex, but a very important objective or a why. And I think that would also answer a lot of your queries. What is your organizational mindset towards Agile? What do you and your employer mean when they say Agile? What is the Agile mindset? For example, and I will be taking a use case of my employer, JP Morgan, which is publicly published on less.works as well. Uh, One of the primary reasons that an organization shifts to scaling is the agile mindset or agile OKRs, as we all know, right? Objective is in the key results associated with agile methodologies or transformation in terms of agile. So, like I was talking about my employer, JP Morgan, and a lot of banks I've seen, they have transitioned from project to product based way of working. Now, when they transitioned from project to product, it was not an easy transition, or rather, it wasn't a simple decision. It came up with a lot of, you can say, thought process, which evolved around how are you going to lay out the future trajectories across your line of businesses, right? For example, any bank has credit cards, auto finance, loans, savings, and so many, and you can say corporate finance, investment banking, so many LOBs. How are you going to derive your product mindset across this line of businesses? Now, this is tied to your organizational OKR, and that's where the need for scaling comes up, because that's where our traditional one team Scrum framework may not help, because your organization is pushing for a different mindset. Your organization is pushing for a transversal product based mindset, right? So this is what I wanted to talk in the first few minutes, where I wanted to ponder, and this is probably you can still ponder upon when you go back to your offices and workplaces tomorrow. I'm sure you all are either knowing Scrum or Agile, or are already working and practicing, or already coaching and practicing on Agile or Scrum. This question is very important to answer. Why do we need scale? Why do we scale? Remember, scaling is an overhead. Scaling is a cost, right? And to scale, you should have legitimate reasons. So these are some of the factors or attributes as you see multiple features, modules, a huge team size, and what does your organizational mindset is. Uh, and that is the precisely decision makers, or you can say decision tools for you to decide that let's scale. Now, for scaling, there are multiple frameworks. We know a lot of them. Many popular, many not so popular tools. I have been associated with one scaling framework throughout, and that is LESS. LESS is an acronym for Large Scale Scrum, right? So before we like to this in this entire session, I don't want to teach less directly because I know a lot of you may already know less, but still I will be talking about what exactly less is. But I want you all to take away from this session some 4 to 5 insights which would compel or convince you that yes, you should use less within your organization. Again, I'm not selling less. I'm just telling you the benefits of less. Maybe some other framework would be applicable to your product problem statements or business values that you're trying to achieve, right? But here we'll talk about less and the 4 to 5 key overarching benefits of less. But before that, what is less? So this is one a very the source of all whatever I'm showing you is less.works. Um, Everything I have taken from there, so nothing is my own. It is copyrights less.works, hence I have accredited them. You can feel free to go to www.less.works. They have immense material on large scale Scrum, the use cases, like I mentioned about JP Morgan. There are case studies on IBM, there are case studies on Microsoft, many large organizations who have successfully implemented large scale Scrum in their organizations. Now, why less is important to know. But before that, what is less, right? So a question which comes to a lot of your mind. So less is nothing but large scale Scrum framework. As you see here, it is a scaling framework if you have more than one team. So let's say you have, so Scrum team, one Scrum framework can be associated with one Scrum team. But let's say you have 2 teams, 3 teams, or more than that. So the moment you go more than one team, technically by books, your one Scrum guide, even Scrum guide says that your one Scrum team may not be effective. You are not really following Scrum if you are having 2 to 3 teams using the same, because think of it. If you have 3 teams and if you're saying that you're following Scrum, uh, you are not really being very logical and rational, because you have 3 teams. You have to bring all the 3 teams on the same page in terms of conversations, in terms of collaborations, in terms of work. And that is where scaling frameworks come into picture, and that is where less comes into picture. So as you see, this is less framework, right? Less framework starts with sprint plannings, whereas you see a lot of the sprint planning one, which where we talks about the traditional what and why, is combined, right? And sprint planning two is very individual to the team, where we talk about the how part of it. And then you go ahead with your daily scrums for each of your teams. And finally, as you come towards the towards the last part, or you can say the end of your sprint, you see there are certain events which are combined across the teams, like sprint review becomes a overall sprint review. Then there are retrospective, which also becomes overall retros, right? There are also we also have in less framework a legitimate scrum event called as PBR. So Scrum Guide talks about PBR but doesn't call it as an official Scrum event. It calls it as an activity, an ongoing activity. But less, being a scaling framework, it goes one step ahead and says that hey, less subscribes to PBR being an official less event, right? And that is what we see, that you have this product backlog refinement, which can be combined across the teams and if needed, individual to the teams also. Frequency you can decide. So if it is like a 10 working days sprint, then you can go at least 2 to 3 PBRs, right? In order to have next 2 to 3 sprints of work ready, right? So, and this is how you typically work in the framework of less. Now, why less? Uh, you have to understand one thing, and this is a very important thing, a very important benefit, why I personally like less. And whoever here in the audience, whoever has read Scrum Guide, whoever knows Scrum, I would tell you one very important, or rather, this is how I try to convince, or rather persuade a lot of organizational management to implement less is Scrum. Less framework is Scrum. Only difference is less is built with Scrum plus something more. And that something more is not a lot of things. That something more comes from the objective of scaling. But less is very true to Scrum. So less.works has run in tandem with the Scrum Guide and the latest Scrum Guide which came in 2020, November 2020. So if you know Scrum, you will know less. You will not be, you will not falter in implementing less across your teams. So that is one of the reasons why I love less. Now, this also brings me to the second important benefit of less. And I will be taking you towards the benefits in the next slide. But since we are on this slide, I'll talk a little bit on this. I'll introduce this. Is the reason because less is very true to Scrum. Less doesn't add a lot of roles exponentially in your scaling arena. So what are the three roles we have in Scrum? We have developer, we have a developer's role, which is the development team. We have a Scrum Master, and we have something called as a product owner, who is you can say the value maximizer, or you can say the one who sets the product goals and owns the value part of the team product, or the you can say the team. So these are the three Scrum roles, right? Let's say that, hey, we will also go with these three roles only. We are not going anywhere different. There is an additional fourth role added, that is only because we are scaling, and that role is called as area product owner, right? That role is only called as an area product owner because we will be having specific modules or specific requirement areas. Hence, you need certain area product owners to work with the team. Rest all roles are same. You have Scrum Masters, you have developers, and you have a product owner, right? So this is another benefit of less. That less doesn't add your roles exponentially. Now here, I'll pause a bit and I'll take you through, I'll try to give you an example of JP Morgan. Again, this case study is published on less.works. You can go to less.works, you can go to case study, and you will see JP Morgan's case study. And I'm talking about JP Morgan case study because I'm working with them. A few years back, JP Morgan Chase globally uh, decided to transition from project to product mindset way of working. And this is where I mean, Lex was one of the, I would say JP Morgan, in fact, was one of the first organizations to implement Lex. Now, this came as a part of experiments. The idea was which framework we should take. And Lex was something which came very closer to their organization needs. Lot of things went in background while they were figuring about why less. So as you see, focus was more on feature teams. Any organization would love to see if their LOBs are creating products which are associated with teams which are more feature based in nature, which are more structured to have a feature based mindset. Now, this is preached and specified by Scrum also. But the question is, are we all following? The question is every scaling framework true to feature team? If yes, of course it is good. But less makes it compulsory. Not only makes it compulsory, I would say it very nicely, beautifully justifies the reason of being feature driven. And that is because of this reason why, as you see on the screen, you have something called as a product owner team. Because your products are divided into area products. So one product is divided into multiple area products. And this area products will define how your scaling will operate. Now, one area product can be associated with 2 to 3 teams, similarly for another area product, and so on, right? So that's what you see here. You have you have something called as less huge. If you go more than 8 teams, it is called less huge, right? And this is how JP also as an organization went ahead with scaling when they had more than 8 teams in their one product hierarchy, in their one product organization. So they started implementing less huge. Then the question comes of, role of managers. uh, I know Scrum guide specifically don't talk about project management or project managers or any managerial capacity role. Less as a framework also doesn't talk about any role apart from product owner. Of course, area product owner is the additional role, Scrum Master and developers. Apart from these, Less also doesn't subscribe to any role. However, Less acknowledges the presence of management in driving scaling. So this is where it talks about the role of managers. It doesn't subscribe or specifies any specific management role, but it says that, hey, look, we are talking about scaling now. We are talking about 8 to 10 teams or even more. We are talking at times about 25, 30 teams across multiple LOBs or even more if it is an organization of scale like JP or any big service company. That's where you need management role also. And let's talk about it in a way that you need managers to work with the product owner, the single product owner associated with the product, in seeing that where you should see the demand of aligning your different teams. Now, this management role can also fulfill the role of removing area impediments with the help of Scrum Masters, ensuring that the technology presence is given, right? The technology infra is given. So that role of managers is made important when it comes to Less. Again, it's not a role which is mentioned as a Less role, but it acknowledges management role, right? Then going a step ahead, it also talks about technical excellence. Now, a Less Scrum Master, apart from fulfilling all the Scrum Master responsibilities towards team, towards you can say other teams in his arena, and finally towards organization, a Less Scrum Master has to be a little technology oriented. Now, when I say technology oriented, meaning does this Less Scrum Master has to be a technical expert, or is it non-negotiable for a Less Scrum Master to know about technology inside and out or be a software engineer in past? No. However, a Less Scrum Master should appreciate technology and should equip and strive for technical excellence. What do I mean by that? A lot of your organizational projects in Less arena, maybe, and not maybe, I would say most importantly, in today's times, which we are very technology driven in terms of your DevOps pipeline, where we think about the continuous integration and deployment and deliveries. Then the entire cloud transitions or transformations, where you have Azure, AWS, and many such cloud technologies in picture, and you think about seamless transitioning to cloud from your on-premise services. Then third part is your what frameworks, what technology stacks. So all this is the technology stuff which a Less Scrum Master should, if not understand in depth, but should appreciate and should try to understand more as he or she progresses. Because there would be advanced discussions with multiple teams where the Less Scrum Master has to add that facet of technical excellence. So for example, I tell all my Less Scrum Masters, hey, go ahead and do AWS practitioner certification. You don't need to deep dive in AWS, for example, but you should know what cloud transformation means, or Azure practitioner certification, or if it is related to, let's say, just as a high level, what does a DevOps means, or anything of that matter. So are you getting what I'm trying to say? So that technical excellence or understanding part of it should be the fourth important asset, or you can say, okay, objective, I would say, KPI for any less Scrum Master. So if you want to be, any one of you want to be a less Scrum Master, apart from all that what the Scrum Guide says, please note down this is the fourth element, that is the technical excellence. If you don't know, it's fine, but you should at least have the curiosity to learn and understand, and imbibe that in you, so that you can help your development team experts and area product owners to continuously derive value out. Right? So that is the fourth element. Then the most important element, why less framework? See, this is a very important thing which you need to understand. This is the second last point where I say why less framework. There are frameworks, without naming anyone, add a lot of rules when it comes to the adoption, also in terms of the integration of your code. What Let's does is, Let's, being a framework, gives the implementation roles, whichever they are, like your roles, like area product owners or development teams, to integrate the code to improve at your own pace. For example, it doesn't subscribe or specify that there should be an integration team, or there should be a team to do continuous improvement and you can say delivery. What Let's says is, we encourage adopting an option of continuous improvement, continuous integration of your code, and continuous delivery to production. We will not handhold you in. We will subscribe the rule, we will recommend the rules, but it is you as a team. And again, if you see, this is very tied to the Agile manifestos, and also very tied to the Scrum values of the three pillars, as we see: inspect, transparency, and adoption, the adaptation part of it, and also the Scrum values, where you have the openness and an independent attitude to kind of disciplined way of working. That's what Less tries to do here. So it will not add a lot of roles and teams to it. This is where it makes it more easy, and this is also one of the reasons why I love working in less nomenclatures. And finally, and the most important thing, some of the concepts which I have not seen in the book of works of other scaling frameworks. Of course, there must be a lot of uh, thoughts indirectly mentioned, but Less explicitly talks about queuing theory or lean way of thinking, which has a lot of synergies with Kanban or system thinking. I'm sure you all understand what a system thinking is, right? Where you question every what part of it, where you bring actors and keep doing that systems way of thinking. Queuing theory. Why queuing theory is important, where you see what is the work in progress in your kitty, right? This is what Less explicitly talks about. Less is very true to very lean way of working, where it says that, hey, do we have any areas of improvising on our waste? Do you think that do we have any waste? We might have certain waste items in terms of features which may have got obsolete, features which may not be really required right now. Are the area product owners really refining the requirements properly? Is anybody looking at your definition of done or definition of ready? Are your acceptance criteria very thought through, right? So there is a lot of scope and opportunity to remove waste. And that is what, where your lean way of thinking also comes into picture, right? If you think about Kanban. So that I love. Less as a framework recommends it proactively, that, hey, we need to think about the queuing theory aspect, where we try to minimize your work in progress. Think of it, if you have a huge work in progress, how difficult and challenging it would be for you as an area product owner, or you as a less Scrum Master, or you as a development team, to prioritize your activities, to put things to production, and to improve on your efficiencies. And that is where I love the lean way of thinking, that, hey, let's think about decreasing our work in progress, right? And this is proactively recommended by Less. Another benefit today, you should note it down, why I recommend Less strongly, or why you should be Less strong. I'll give you an example. Since we at JP Morgan also using Less actively towards implementing scaled area products, overall retrospective or overall review, sprint review, is a very good, you can say, forum where you really inspect all the teams coming together. Now, when I say all the teams coming together, does it mean everybody comes together? No, only the spokes or representatives of each team. It can be the Scrum Master or area products. They all come together and they see that, do we have any opportunity to, improve? Can we inspect? So the sprint review doesn't become a typical sprint demo. It becomes an opportunity to inspect and see if we can decrease our work in progress for next few sprints. Do we have cooling periods? Are we thinking of our code being stable, for next two, at least 1 or 2 sprints? Is the team overburdened with the features to be put to production? Can we have some cooling period so that we decrease the work in progress for some time, think about improvising certain features, maybe by adding design thinking, by adding how value can be, maximized, etc., etc. So this is possible when you have these overall sprint reviews or overall sprint retros. Overall sprint retros, you talk about your people and process part of it and how you can improvise on that, right? All this is possible because LeSS proactively recommends the queuing theory aspect or the lean way of thinking, where you think about decreasing your work in progress and also maximizing on your how you can eliminate waste or reduce waste, and think about having more, productive lead times, right? And this is where I say that it is very true to Scrum, but it adds these different layers around Scrum very beautiful, right? So that's the other aspect of LeSS, and I would say the final aspect of LeSS. LeSS also talks about systems thinking. LeSS also talks about why system thinkings will make your life easy. Again, systems thinking is a huge concept, so I'll not get into it. Probably for Prashant and team, it can be a one-day thing. I'm sure all the practitioners would agree to it. But systems thinking helps you answer a lot of questions related to the why aspect and how you can improvise in your product deliveries to production, and also your continuous improvement part of it, right? So that's where you get all the answers for your what and why. So this is where probably I would say these are the 4 to 5 benefits why LeSS is instrumental, I would say, in coming up with the one of the best scaling ideologies, I would say. Now these are some of the benefits which I have just clustered it down for your so that we summarize what we spoke about. A, as you see, first and most important thing, and I would like to break this news, and of course, the people who agree, disagree, we can talk about it. Let me be very vocal. LeSS is suited for product-based software development. And I'm sure anybody who's practicing LeSS or not would agree, you cannot use LeSS everywhere. Large-scale Scrum is most suited for complex solutions when it comes to product. It may not be an ideal framework for every service-based delivery, right? So for example, if your organization is product driven, if your organization has complex solution when it comes to a product mindset, probably there LeSS would be a very apt way of applying. Whereas if your organization is more focused toward operational excellence, more towards the operational process oriented way, probably you have to rethink, and LeSS may not be the applicable way. And there are so many other beautiful, beneficial frameworks for that. But LeSS, as officially declared by LeSS.works and also subscribed and made vocal by a lot of LeSS practitioners, LeSS is most suited for product-based software. Then, as I said a few minutes back, when we started the session, since LeSS doesn't exponentially add roles to your scaling, and scaling as such is a cost, right? That is where the budget part comes into picture, and that is where the cost of implementation doesn't rise exponentially as well. So if you want to, keep a check on your cost of implementation of your scaling, you don't have to worry, because hey, for your teams, you don't need to retrain them on Scrum. If they know Scrum, it would be easier for them to implement less. Yes, you may need to train them a bit, but you don't need to train them in terms of a dedicated certification. Let me tell you, and even after being a certified LeSS practitioner, your teams may not necessarily need to get certified in LeSS if they need to implement LeSS. You can just read through LeSS.works and the material which they have provided, and you can implement LeSS. As I said, LeSS is very true to Scrum, so it is not very difficult to do. So are you getting a lot of training costs come down? Since there are not many other roles, so your headcounts are very specific to your Scrum-based way of working. So those costs may also come down. And you can think more from your delivery point of view to production, right? Then again, the fourth point, as I was talking about, it is very true to Agile manifesto or the way Agile has been developed years back. So that continuous improvement, which is very fundamental to Agile way of working, it comes into picture proactively by LeSS, right? And last and most important thing, the area product way of working. That is where you need to increasingly more and more think about why LeSS would be more apt. Again, as I said, area products are very beautiful concepts, and it's very simple to understand. And just like I'll again give you an example. Let's take a bank, any bank. In a bank, let's take an example of let's say a banking app. Now, banking app is a solution, right? Now, this banking application would have specific features. It can be a feature related to loan or debt, which a customer can do. It can be a feature related to credit card. It can be a feature related to debit card. It can be a feature related to, you can say, other savings or auto billing, everything. So this is a banking application is a product. Now, this product would be divided into multiple area products. What will be the area products? One area product would be credit card, for example. A very laymanish example. Another area product can be savings bank, your debit card or savings account, or you can say CASA account, which we call it as. Then another area product can be the loans or the debt. Like if you need an automobile loan or a loan related to housing loan or a personal loan, etc. Fourth can be other finances or maybe some corporate finance. So this banking application can make your life easy. So these are specific area products. You can have one product owner at the top, and all the area products will have one specific area product. Now, these area product owner will work with one product owner and will make your life easy by having 2 to 3 teams specific to area products and delivering solutions to you. So that's the beauty of area product. Again, as I say, there is a lot of literature to it. If you want to deep dive, go ahead, subscribe to the certifications if you want, go to LeSS.works, read more about it. There are trainers who can do this job easy for you by coaching you. I can also, if you want to do specific certifications on LeSS, reach out to me. I can recommend you to certain trainers who I have been aware of so far, and they can do this job easy for you. Even if not, you can just go on LeSS.works and answer all your questions. Of course, you can reach out to me anytime, and I can, try to explain you in my capacity a lot of things about these area products and the concepts around it, right? Uh, Before we kind of conclude, I also wanted to, keep these few things in front of you so that you know what LeSS talks about. LeSS talks about these 10 principles as we were talking about. And the beauty of some of these is what I have not seen in any other scaling work arenas, like for example, lean thinking or systems way, or especially the queuing theory, which is there since ages, but LeSS proactively talks about. So these are different, principles of LeSS-based way of working, and I would recommend that you go through personally, each of them, and LeSS.works beautifully suggests some of the recommendations. I have certain books also which I can recommend. Maybe you can just drop me a message on LinkedIn or just write to me on my email ID. I can recommend certain books which you can read on it, right? What are the engineering practices? The technical excellence part of it, which I was talking. So the test-driven way of development or peer programming, which we call about. Then specifications or the automation part of it. the continuous integration and delivery and deployments, right? Thinking about clean code is a very important. So all this is proactively spoken and explained in less. These practices are explained in less. And if you see, you may not find this Greek. If you have been working in software development for a while, you might have heard this often. Less brings all this together in the form of a framework, right? And that is the reason why I think this is very crucial. Queuing theory, I just spoke about it a few minutes back, that less talks about the reducing the work in progress levels. Planning and budgeting, we spoke about how cost can come or derive, or as a benefit of attribute, it can be less when it compares when you don't have multiple roles and you diminish the training costs. Last but not least, I would like to end this probably and before moving to the Q&A, there are beautiful these concepts like travelers, as you see here, or concepts like communities of practices, which are proactively recommended by less when it comes to this entire collaboration piece of it, right? Because we are talking about scaling. So I'm sure a lot of you may ask, hey, how do we collaborate? So I love this concept of travelers. What do you mean traveler? As a traveler, I just go to one team and I just observe. There would be I can just join their daily scrum. Now, this may be a very basic concept, but less beautifully brings it as an attribute in front of you, or communities of practices. We have all have been doing cross team or community of practices across our product or organization, but less talks more in a self-organized manner for you to create those informal leaders, form these community of practices for your benefit, right? So this is the collaboration piece I wanted to touch base as we come towards the end. And this way I would like to probably end, take up questions. I'm sure you would have questions. I can answer as much as possible in the benefit of time we have. Uh, I would be more than happy to answer all your questions about less and more benefits about less in future after this session anytime. Okay. So with this, uh, Prashant, can we
Yeah.
go with some Q&A if
Yes.
there are any
Thanks a lot.
questions?
Yes. Yes. Sure. Yeah, Kalpak. Thanks a lot. So I think that they have given some good clarity about the LESS framework. So we have a couple of questions here. From one from Srijit. Srijit asks how LESS enables and support for emergent architecture for complex solutions.
Excellent question. So first of all, thanks for highlighting this question, and I would like to underline the word complex solution here. Let me tell you, less is meant for large scale or highly complex product based solutions, which as a team, less based team you can offer. Less framework is meant for it. Now, when it comes to emergent practices, and this is where I would also like to touch base a little bit on these two slides, that is principles and engineering practices. Today, we have a lot of emergent practices in terms of technology as well as the way we work. Today, almost every environment, for example, is transforming on cloud. Almost every organization is getting digital transformed. And then you have every other technological frameworks that want to implement either AI, ML, data, science part of it, and give insightful solutions, complex solutions for the customer. Less is the apt framework for it for multiple reasons, and how it does is, A, it will ensure that your area products which you have formed are equipped with the the technological know-how when it comes to your area products owners which are formed. It will ensure that continuous improvement as a practice is followed, because that is a recommended rule in less, right? Third and most important thing, when it comes to technology, less itself would persuade you as an implementation practitioner, hey, are you doing continuous integration and or not? If not, then let's will ensure that it will make things easy for you. But I'll tell you one thing, Shruti. I'd like to take 1 minute of yours in this. As I said at the beginning of the session, less is very true to Scrum. One of the beauties of Scrum, why it has been one of the popular implementation framework in Agile, is that ownership and discipline is completely to the teams who are working on that. Agree, disagree? And that is the reason why Scrum has been successful, because it talks about ownership. Let's also talks about a self-managed way of working. Let's will not spoon feed you that you have to go to CI/CD or DevOps. Let's will recommend you. Let's say if you fail to do so, is it a problem of the framework? No. You have to be disciplined as a team that am I answering the needs of my product value? If my organization is saying that I have to achieve this value, am I answering the need of the insightful data-based solutions? Right? Less will make complex software development easy for you. But am I, as a practitioner of this process, learning about AI ML or data science or DevOps or AWS/Azure or whatever cloud framework, and making this easy for my my organization? These questions, as a less practitioner, and this is probably a job of a less coach or a less scrum master, you have to ask yourself. And this is the reason why I say it is true to Scrum and Agile, that it will not spoon feed you with the things. It will not create integration teams. It will persuade you to be self-managed, form your units, and make it easy. And that is the reason why, if you go to less.works, all the organizations who have been successful in deriving value by using less as a scaling framework, they have given specific acknowledgement to this part, that less is not prescribing certain thing, it is recommending. For example, continuous integration or test driven way of working, or you can say CI/CD pipeline, this is recommended. This is not spoon fed or kept as a rule, right? And that this is the beauty of it, right? And I don't know whether I've answered your question, but I feel if your organization is product based, if it has complex solutions, complex problems, obviously the solutions would require a very thoughtful, scaled way of delivery, and less, I'm sure, would be very apt.
Thank you, Kalpak. So I hope that answered Srijit's question. So with the second question from RC Goel, what is the meaning of being product based organization to execute their application, product development and providing services, being product based?
Right. I'll give an example and explain. This would take another hour maybe if we want. I'm sure Prashant would agree. But product-based mindset changes a lot of things at an organizational level. When we were, or any organization is project-driven, the timelines, the tasks are aligned based on the requirements, based on the project scopes. But the moment you change your mindset to product-based way of software development, it's a paradigm shift in the way of you think. So for example, a product owner would act like a startup entrepreneur. For example, he will think about discovering the product end to end. He will think about how I can add more and more value to my my product. He will not think about whether my project is a fixed bid project, 6 month project, or 1 year based project. He will think about, hey, we are working in sprints. I have to ensure that my product keeps on becoming mature. I bring more and more value to my table. And that's exactly the difference between a product based software development process. So when I say JP Morgan Chase or any organization, when it becomes a product based organization, it shifts its mindset to more product focus, to more product discovery based. It adds the design thinking, it adds the business value. I'm not saying project based organization don't do it. All these service based organizations are traditionally, when they started from Infosys days or Patni Computers days in India, for example, were project focused. But today, as you see, many organizations are becoming product focused for this very reason. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions nearly
Sure.
similar.
Please.
Is
Yeah.
Scrum of Scrum is similar to less?
Okay, great. I will also answer another question while we answer this. Uh, Scrum of Scrums is a scaling framework. Nexus, which is given by scrum.org, right, the official Scrum body, is a scaling framework. Safe is a scaling framework. Less is a scaling framework. All these are scaling frameworks. If you ask me, yes, all of these are similar in some ways. They are different in some ways, right? For example, Less adds this concept of area product owners, which may not be there as the area product owner role explicitly mentioned, let's say in Scrum of Scrums or Safe or Nexus. Or Nexus has a concept called as integration team, which is not explicitly mentioned in Less, right? Or Safe has RTE or the release train, which is not explicitly mentioned in Less. But Less is beautifully talking about queuing theory in forefront, which may not be specifically mentioned. So just to answer your question, all these are scaling frameworks. All of them are different in its own way. They can be utilized the way your scaling needs are. Hence, I started the session from the slide being, why do you need to scale, right? If you know the answer, you would also know why. So if your organization is product based, if it complex problem solutions, you may want to focus more on less, right? Safe has a different approach of doing things. It is an organizational, it comes probably top down. Of course, less also comes from top, organizational mindset, but less add more different paradigms to it, right? So that's how I would answer your question. And of course, we can talk about it
Yeah,
in detail.
it's it's really it's a very big question. It
Exactly.
can't be answered in short time. But
Yeah.
just before closing, one question from my side, very simple, I think so.
Sure.
But yeah, uh, see, when you see you are going to implement Scrum, or you're going Scrum way of working, Scrum Master takes the responsibility to transform, whereas drive the change, as well as Safe also been driven change by SPCs, Safe Program Consultants. Is there anything called less consultant or anything who can drive this change?
So yes, so good, excellent question, Prashant. So less uh, doesn't have a less consultant role. Less, as I said, overarching within the framework boundaries. Apart from area product owner, it doesn't add any other role. You just have product owner, you have less Scrum Master, and you have the development team, and of course you have area product owner. That is the only role added. But as a less framework, if you want to coach teams on less, let's say if you want to know more about less, you can get certified. You can become a less practitioner. You can become a less certified executive consultant. So that certification is there. So if you go to less.works, you can see this certification. So let's say if you want to make a career in less, and if you're an agile coach, a lot of agile coaches I've seen, they want to diversify. They want to work on safe as well as less, right, today. So they also go ahead with, if I'm correct, with less executive certification, right? And that
Okay.
certification will help you become a certified less consultant for multiple organizations. I'm not a less certified executive. I have not done a overarching, but I'm a less certified practitioner. I'm an
Practitioner.
implementation practitioner. Honestly, obviously, because of the way I have worked, literally hands on, right, on less. But yes, if you want to, like, I have the coaching credential, so that can be one of my target. That yes, I can go for less executive in future. So to
Okay.
answer your
Yeah.
question, that
Yeah.
probably is.
So less practitioners with an experience can drive the transformation. Okay.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot, Kalpak. Thanks for your insightful session.
I hope I could
Yeah,
bring little, if not a lot
very,
of things, but at least one or two things which you can take back from today's session.
very much. Yeah, it was good. And I think participants also enjoyed it. Thanks a lot once again on behalf of Agile Network India community.